Even the DA, when it's making their demands or threats, they are using other acts, Expropriation Act, Phala Act, all of those things as a bargaining tool. The VAT increment is a lazy proposal by the government. Most of the party leaders, the issues concerning the black people become a last resort. What is eminent in their view, who's going to be what. No one knows if maybe Afriforum is actually given money by Americans to spread their propaganda.
Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX. Today I'm really excited to be joined by a friend of the show, someone who has appeared on SMWX since its first ever year, and now he is a major MP in South Africa, the leader of the ATM, Vuyo Zungula. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invite.
What do you make of all that's happening in Parliament right now with the budget and how that process has unfolded, showing a lot of cracks in this so-called GNU that we have?
It goes back to what we said when the GNU was formed, to say once you've got parties that are opposed in terms of their policies, their ideologies, this is bound to happen. That's why even the DA, when it's making their demands or threats over the budget, they're not focusing on the actual budget. They are using other acts, Expropriation Act, Phala Act, all of those things as a bargaining tool. So they're not dealing as to the substance of the budget, and even it's beyond the VAT issue, the issue of the budget, but because the DA is using the budget to fight the other issues because they lost when it comes to the expropriation, the Phala and the other things. And I think what they're trying to do to their constituency is more of a power play. What they are trying to do is they're just trying to show that they still have power in the GNU, and what they're trying to do is failing dismally because the ANC is not budging.
Yeah, what are you hearing about where things are going with this budget? We're talking at a time when the joint, I don't know what it's called, but all the finance committees from the NCOP and the National Assembly come together, met for 9 hours.
Yeah.
Firstly, it wasn't broadcasted. I mean, do you think that was deliberate?
Definitely deliberate, because normally Parliament, when there's something that has the interest of the country, you arrange for a meeting venue that will enable that broadcasting. And there was quite a number of venues that were free yesterday with broadcast facilities. So, but because maybe they do not want people to know exactly what happens in these processes, because quite a number of MPs, actually educated ANC people and DA MPs there as to the process that should have been followed. So I think it was deliberate to try and hide from the people the intricacies of the budgeting process of our country.
That's actually quite a serious thing, that this crucial moment was being hidden from the people, where Parliament is actually supposed to be an institution that is open to the people.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'm saying, I could count 2 or 3 venues that were free. And everything is set up, so you don't need to bring in cameras, you don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
But they chose a venue without broadcasting facilities. So it's what they've been wanting to do, just hide from the people what's happening.
Yeah. And in terms of the budget negotiations, I mean, I suppose we could even start back when the budget was not tabled properly. I mean, were you surprised by that?
It came as a surprise because the DA and the ANC have always maintained that everything is well in the GNU. And again, our biggest gripe as a party would be to say, you don't wake up today and go to cabinet and present something that you know might not have the full support of the other parties in cabinet. And also, the GNU decided to have a clearinghouse way before the budget processes were kick-started. So one would assume that with proper leadership, if you know that something is bound to create some form of issues, you start by the clearinghouse, you do things beforehand, you don't go in the morning that you are going to present a budget in the afternoon and you make a proposal of the VAT. But at the same time, It was during the times of the SONA debates. During that particular time, a few members from EFF and MK actually spoke to me and said the DA is not going to support the budget. And at the time, there was no VAT proposal, there was nothing. And they were saying they are not going to support it because they feel betrayed by the ANC that went through with Bella, expropriation and the other things. So they are wanting to use the budget as a means of bargaining or using it as a power play against the ANC. So it's not really about the substance of the VAT or the budget, but it's more of a political power play between these parties.
Where do you stand on this VAT increase as it stands with the 0.5 and the 0.5 the following year?
Completely against it. There's other avenues that could be explored as a means of raising revenue. One of them is the wealth tax. It has worked in other countries where wealth tax was used, especially in South Africa where there's high inequality. So wealth tax is a mechanism that could be used to fund government programs and reduce the inequalities. You also have a case of illicit financial flows where by the reports of the OECD, South Africa is losing about 1.1 trillion rands per annum on illicit financial flows. That's why even the SARS commissioner said, give us more money as SARS as an institution to enable us to be able to fight illicit financial flows amongst other things. But you find that there is no appetite to do that. So in our view, the VAT increment is a lazy proposal by the government. They refuse to go after big multinational corporates. They refuse to go after wealthy individuals. They just want to go after the poor. And since the reality is that when the VAT is increased by 0.5%, it's only going to be on paper, the 0.5%. On the actual products, the companies or business people are not going to increase by 0.5% because of that. They are going to add whatever profits because as a consumer, you don't go to a shop with a calculator to say that before the VAT increase, the VAT was, for example, 10 rands. Now, if you add 0.5%, it's supposed to be 10 rands and 50 cents. You don't have that calculator. So if the price of a product increases, for example, by 12 rands, and then the company is going to attribute that to VAT, only to find that 1.50 rand is actually their profits. You don't have that. So this is going to make South Africans to be further in poverty because currently we have to deal with high electricity tariffs, high fuel prices, high interest rates and cost of living. So when you add a VAT increase, you are basically killing South Africans who are already battling to survive.
Do you think we could see, therefore, opposition parties uniting against this VAT increase? Because when I look at the numbers, without the DA, the ANC, IFP, all of the other GNU partners have around 185. If you add MK, EFF, DA, ATM, etc., you get to around 185. So it's almost as if those two blocks around the VAT increase are going to have to decide or have to encourage the remaining swing voters to come one way or the other. It seems to me South Africans don't want this VAT thing. It's very unpopular, but the ANC for some reason just keeps doing it. Could we see an unprecedented opposition unity moment in Parliament?
It's going to be difficult. Firstly, from the GNU perspective, I read something about the deputy president of the ANC saying that if a party does not vote in support of the budget, they should not be in government, to basically spend a budget that they did not vote for. So it means all of the parties in the GNU, for them to stay in the GNU and retain their ministerial positions, they need to vote in support of this budget. But at the same time, when it comes to opposition parties, the trick part there is having parties that, in principle, because if you were to check most parties after the budget speech, they were completely opposed to the VAT increase. But if you check now, the language has changed.
Yeah.
Precisely because some of these parties want to be in government, or some of these parties want to retain their ministerial positions in government. So I think it's now the issue would be parties that will take a decision not for the best interest of the people, because what's in the best interest of the people is that VAT must not go up. But parties will take a decision in their own selfish interest of wanting to be in government. So we might see some parties in the opposition voting yes for the VAT increase because they want to be in government.
That would be a suicidal move for voters, surely. I mean, that's the scary thing. I mean, it would be a short-term thing to try and run to get into government, and then voters can punish you next year at the election.
Yeah, maybe they're hoping that voters are going to forgive and perhaps forget what is happening. There's been instances whereby parties do wrong things, but voters still forgive them. Maybe so they are hoping that the same thing will happen now. But I can tell you now that there's quite a number of discussions between the ANC and other parties who were previously against the VAT.
Yeah.
And we must not be surprised when a party, after the budget speech, was completely opposed to the budget, to the VAT increase, but now they're going to find creative ways to explain, why they've decided to, to support this budget that has got a VAT increase.
Which parties do you think could? I mean, we know Action SA is already doing some funny things where they suddenly say they support the fiscal framework, but with a recommendation. So that's one party. But the ANC won't be able to get there if the DA doesn't support it with just Action SA. So do you think DA would come on board to stay in government? Do you think EFF would come on board? Would MK come on board? Where are they going to get these votes?
I think it's most likely the DA is going to stay. They're not going to walk out. They've been threatening to walk out. But I think the DA is going to stay. They'll find ways, because remember, they've been preaching about this doomsday coalition. So perhaps they are going to be creative and say, we are going to vote in support of the budget because we do not want to leave, and then the doomsday coalition comes in. So they will always go back to that default, fear-mongering stance, and they are going to use that because they want to stay in government. Otherwise, it's not because of a principled point of view, but it's because they want to retain the perks that they're having. Remember, they made many proposals during the times they were opposition that cut cabinet, cut the benefits of the ministers, but when they got there, they went silent on the very same things they were using to campaign on. So it clearly shows how much the DA is not a party that is genuine, but is a party that was just wanting to be in government. Now that they are in government, all of the things they viewed as problematic when they were outside suddenly are not as problematic.
Yeah, no, if they do that, that would be a shocker, really.
Yeah.
But it seems as if the ANC's got the DA where they want them, if that's the case, because, I mean, they'll do anything and the DA will just finally accept it after making a fuss.
Like they threatened with Bella. They threatened with the Expropriation Act. So that's what they've been doing for the past couple of months. They threaten, but they don't walk away. Even now, I can tell you now, they're not going to walk away.
Sure. What about a motion of no confidence? Do you think that's a faraway prospect? Because at the end of the day, the ANC can say, well, you'll leave government if you don't vote. But then the DA could say, okay, well then what if we all came together as opposition parties and had a motion of no confidence against this government, and then we reconstitute after that on a new power dynamic?
I don't think the DA enjoys the confidence of opposition parties, which is EFF, NK, ATM, UAT, and NCC, because of how the manner in which they've conducted themselves in the past months after the formation of the GNU clearly shows that they are not really about principle and the best interest of the people. Like what the Minister of Finance said, that there was a letter written by the DA saying they can support the VAT increase on the condition that the government backtracks on the Expropriation Act, Bella Act. So you could see that they're just using whatever, to get ahead. It's not really about the principle, about what is in the best interest of the people. So it's difficult for then opposition parties to want to work with an organization that is scheming, basically. And also what I know about the DA, they are waiting for the Constitutional Court judgment on Phala Phala for them to actually strike when it comes to the president of the country. I don't think they would go the route of a motion of no confidence. They are waiting for that particular court judgment.
Sure, that's really interesting. Takes us to Phala Phala, which is an interesting and a very important move that ATM has been at the forefront of championing. Right from the beginning, you have, said that this is unacceptable. You've gone to all kinds of agencies, public protector, you were there at the Concourt, and before it was fashionable. Where do you think we stand on that issue? Because it's always in the background, and as you say, this Concourt judgment is going to come one of these days, and we might get a shocker, in which case things will be very tough for the president.
Yeah, there's in the court, Constitutional Court on the day, I think it was Judge Rogers, who said if it was any other person who had so much money that was undeclared, that was kept in a sofa for so long, they would not have the clean bill of health like it is now with the president. I think that's a bone of contention on our side, because many other people have been arrested for having cash above what is legally allowed. Other people have been arrested for not reporting to DPCI any corruption, fraud, or theft of above 100,000 rands, because that is what the Act says. So for us, what we're really fighting is more of a principle point of view to say there can't be certain rules for the mighty and powerful politicians and a different set of rules for ordinary people. If you look at countries that have gone the route of no return in terms of not being able to fight corruption, it always starts with a different treatment that is afforded to the president. From the president, it becomes ministers. From the ministers, it becomes the powerful people. So again, that cancer of treating politicians differently and giving them so much power infests the entire society to an extent whereby you can't fight corruption. You can't fight wrongdoing, because the people that are powerful will always get away scot-free. So that is what for us is something that is important to say. All people must be treated equally before the law. So we're still waiting for the Constitutional Court to give us a judgment. We are hoping as well that the North Gauteng High Court is going to give us a date, because we reviewed the Public Protector's report.
I was going to ask about that,
Because the manner in which she approached the investigation for us is not really, it does not give confidence. Because you can't have a report, you can't do a report as a public protector and you don't rely on oral evidence, especially when some of the allegations paint to people being threatened or people being bribed for them to look the other way. Because the allegation from Arthur Fraser is that the robbers were bribed for them to keep quiet. The person who mines the house of the president, the farm, who is related to one of the robbers, was also bribed. So, but once you want written statements from these people, and the different type of people there, the farm manager, the person who was minding the farm, and another person, all of their statements are drafted by one legal firm, clearly shows that there's some form of collusion that is happening there. But as a public protector, when you have oral evidence with whoever that you are interviewing, you are able to pick up some of the gaps, and you are going to, ask more questions. But in a case whereby it is a written statement, then it means that person can just, in fact, the legal firm, because it's representing all of these people, can make sure that all of these statements, they're aligned and there is no inconsistencies. So amongst other reasons, that is what we said, but this needs to be reviewed by the court.
Absolutely. I'm struggling to understand why the court hasn't actually given you a date for this yet, because this public protector report came out and your review. I mean, when was this application launched? Quite a while ago.
Yeah, quite a while ago, but we're hoping that in the sometime now in April or May, we will have a date, because from our side, we've complied with all of the directives of the court.
Sure. That should be interesting. So there'll be a hearing sometime soon this year.
Yeah.
To challenge the public protector's report on Phala Phala.
Yeah.
That'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Because again, if that goes your way, then the president is again in a very difficult position on this issue.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that's not going to go away for the president.
Yeah. Even you know what's funny was that on the day, so there was this constitutional court on Phala Phala. And then I think few days later, no, it was not few days later, when there was an Expropriation Act bill was signed, I got a call from someone in the DA. They asked, where is the issue concerning the constitutional court judgment? And then I gave him a view that maybe it's going to take a bit of time. And he said, all right, we are waiting. As soon as you get something as a party, please share it with us. We're going to support you. So you could see that the DA, they want to use the constitutional court or Phala Phala issue, not as a means of accountability, but as a means of saying to the president, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to use this Phala Phala issue to bury you. So it's not really about enforcing accountability and the good governance systems, but it's more of saying, like what they're doing now on the VAT issue, to say, if you don't give us what we want on Bella and expropriation, we're not going to support you. So that is why I'm saying, back to the other question, it's become very difficult to trust the DA, because the manner in which they conduct themselves, it is not giving confidence that they are doing it out of the best interest of the country.
And there was a Hawks investigation or something that was also suppressed, or we were told that we wouldn't see it.
The IPID report.
Yeah, the IPID report. That's it. Yeah.
The IPID report, because again the allegation was the Major General abused his power, used state resources to be engaged in an investigation without following due processes, without having a case number, and he was not supposed to be doing an investigation because that is not his mandate as a protector to the president. So that's what we went to say to IPID. But IPID has been giving us issues there when it comes to releasing the report. We just need to follow up on our side with our legal team, because we're of a strong view that we need to challenge this. And quite a number of parties, like for example, Action SA and other parties said, but this needs to be challenged. So on that front, we should be maybe making an announcement in the next coming days or weeks as to what we're going to do in order to get that report.
We'll just see if Action SA still believes that.
Yeah.
They might be in government by then.
Things might change.
You never know. In terms of the question of the progressive caucus, or the unity between parties that are particularly interested in racial justice and the position of Black South Africans, we have MK, we've got EFF, ATM, UDM. I don't know what happened, because they were there, then they left. But you've often played an important role of trying to bridge between the differences between these parties. How do you feel that project is going right now, and where do you see the opposition parties that are particularly focused on racial justice right now? How far apart are they still?
I think we can just remind each other that, before 1994, firstly, the politics were centered around the struggle for Black people, meaning, dealing with racism, the transformation of the economy, Black South Africans being able to enjoy their lives in their own country. Now, when 1994 happened, there was a lot of compromise that happened through CODESA. That is why you find even the constitution and the legal framework of our country, people are not wrong to say it is not representing their aspirations, because there was compromises. Even de Klerk and the other white people who were formerly part of the apartheid government boldly and proudly stated that they had victories when it comes to those negotiations. Now, if there's a victory for them, it means a loss for the black people that we're fighting against those things. Now, I think what we went wrong as a country in is that after 1994, the struggle did not really center itself on the interests of the black people and in their entirety, but it became more about political parties.
Sure.
Now, this benefits the system because it means political parties, it would take years, over 100 years, for one political party to have a 2/3 majority. It will take years for one political party to reach a state whereby they can properly transform the system to be in line with the aspirations of pre-1994. So our quest to say as parties we need to work together. For us as a party, we're saying that to have 2 seats, 1 seat, 10 seats there, we work within a system that is designed to retain some of the apartheid laws and benefits to white people. We're not doing anything. Let's rather find a way to work together without, again, the dissolution of the different political parties, because there's a system. Zimbabwe, Botswana, and other countries have shown that you could still have a system where you work together because you share the same views, but without the destruction of the different political parties. But once we work together and we have a 2/3 majority, we would be in a position to say, this is what must happen in terms of the constitution, in terms of our minerals, in terms of our legislative framework, in terms of everything that we deem as problematic in our country. But once we stay in our respective political parties and we don't work together, it means we're going to continue working in a system that is designed to perpetuate and keep, the system of benefiting white people. Whether we like it or not, the economy, how it is structured now, it will always benefit white people. So, and we're not going to change that as one party. Look, for the past term in Parliament, 2019 to 2024, as the ATM, we've made countless proposals, but the reality is that if we're not in government and we're not in charge in government, because you could be in government like other parties now, like your PAC is in government, but they're not in charge of the land restitution process, even though they're heading up that particular department, because the legislative framework is not designed to correct the wrongs of the past. So that is what we are trying to do, and we're so passionate. And people can insult us to say, but no, your party is going to fail, is going to die, and all of those things. But our view, Tina, as a party, is to say it should not be about the different parties, because it's been about parties for 30 years, and we've seen it does not take us anywhere as black people. It must be about the struggle of the black people in their entirety.
What do you think is the mechanism for that cooperation that you would most like to see? Would it be some kind of umbrella movement like we've seen in other places? I know you came out recently and said that a merger with one of the bigger opposition parties is off the cards, but that's another option. What modes do you think would be best for this cooperation in an ideal world?
Like an umbrella organization, I think it's UDC in Botswana that had one. I think MDC also in Zimbabwe is an umbrella body. So there's practical cases where it has worked, because we can't run away from the fact that people are still aligned and they still love their own political parties. So the best way to retain the people's political parties, but at the same time work in a way that will enable the working together and the collaboration to give us the numbers that we need to achieve the total liberation of our country. It is only through, an umbrella body. So that is what I would think as an individual, that it's something that would perhaps work in the best interest. But sometimes we need to sit down and check the possibilities and check the strengths. For example, if you want to tackle KZN, you can't run away from the fact that MK there is doing quite well.
Yeah.
So if we're to find a way to work together with MK in that particular province, it would be much more easier to get the numbers that we want instead of maybe trying to have another way. So ours is to say we just need to be flexible.
Sure.
But at the same time, if we keep our goal being achieving total liberation for the interests of the oppressed majority, which is black people, then the other modalities and the other ways become secondary, because I think the conversations is as to working together. We started from the back in the sense that we start with the last things to say, but who's going to be president? Which party are we going to go with? But in our view, the first question that needs to be asked is to say, what needs to be done for the interests of the black child? So if we're saying that we need to transform the economy to be reflective of our racial demographics, we need to make sure that the mineral wealth benefits South Africans. So if we agree on what needs to be done, and then the following question would be, who then is best suited for what? Then a person can say, but so-and-so is very clear, gives confidence on issues concerning law, for example. Therefore, let us take Advocate Mpofu for that particular reason. Take Advocates Kekana, because they know the justice system and how it could be transformed.
Sure.
Let's take so-and-so to deal with the trade and industry, and we're looking at the skills.
Yeah.
Instead of saying first who needs to be president, without even understanding the type of skills that are needed in order to win the fight that we are embarking on. So that is why you find that sometimes these conversations they're demoralizing and demotivating, because it means that most of the party leaders or political parties, the issues concerning the black people become a last resort. What is eminent in their view, who's going to be what?
That's so true. It feels like who leads and which party is put in the forefront and all of that becomes more important than how do we actually dislodge the inequality and injustice in our society. But the funny thing is that if you were able to find a way to work together, then there'd be more for everyone anyway, if it was done right.
Definitely, everyone would be accommodated. Everyone would be, and I think for me, I would rather be part of a system that will enable me to make real change instead of being part of a system whereby the change will be managed. Because if you look at the current GNU arrangement, yes, you've got all of these parties. I made an example about PAC, but whatever they want to do or they wish to do, whatever their campaign messages or the ethos of PAC, which is the land, it will never become a reality because it is managed within a system. But we need to ask ourselves or push for a process whereby let us change the system that is constraining or restricting what we as political parties can do for the betterment of our society. Because currently the system is managing the politics basically. But if we're to say, let's put aside, not really put aside political parties, but let's focus more on the interests of the broader collective of the oppressed black people in order to have power to change the system so that we, all of our political parties, all of the people we claim to love and represent, get to have a better country basically. Because for us, one of the biggest mistakes we are making now is to make our struggle to be centered around our own political parties or us as individuals, instead of saying, let us take it a step back and say, the people come first, the oppressed majority of our people come first. So let's focus on, changing their lives instead of having Musisi as a minister. What are you going to do there? You're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
It should not be about you as an individual. It must be about Abantu. Because after 1994, yes, we can say there's black people who are billionaires or in some industries, but it's a handful of black people. The only way in which we can dismantle this entire apartheid and colonial system for the betterment of our people, it is only through working together. And we would hope that as political parties, let us come closer to that reality to say, past 30 years have clearly shown fighting between this party and this party does nothing. And instead, the white minority is further entrenching themselves in terms of the economy. Because if you look at even the unemployment and poverty rates, the black people's unemployment and poverty rates always go up, even though we can have the loudest voices in politics as the black parties, but it does not materially change, the lives of black people. But only when we work together, there's a greater possibility of doing that.
Absolutely. On a lighter note, in preparation for these interviews, we check what people are searching for other people. One of the big searches for you seems to be is Vuyo Zungula married. So do you accept that you have now become Idyan fully?
Hey. No, I've always been Idyan.
Yeah, so you accept this.
Yeah.
Minister of Idyan Affairs.
Onkamadyan would know by they are represented.
No, lovely stuff. I mean, we've had great conversations throughout the years, and we will hopefully continue to have those chats. But thank you for stopping by SMWX to analyze this political moment. And I'm sure there'll be many twists and turns ahead with this GNU. So we look forward to your further views.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. And please keep us. If you come to us to request an interview, but as soon as our bill that we've tabled in Parliament has reached a level where we can say that it is now attached to a certain committee, there's going to be public hearings, we'll come to you and say, give us a platform to talk about this bill,
absolutely,
the Foreign Agents Bill, because it's very critical when it comes to ensuring that our sovereignty is protected, because the NGO sector is a sector that is working in a manner that is undermining our sovereignty, undermining our national interest. By means of an example, we have an NGO called Green Connection. It is funded by another, it's a international NGO, which is Ocean 5. The objectives of Ocean 5 says clearly in their website to restrict any form of oil and gas development. They're very clear, that's their mandate. But the Green Connection comes to South Africa when there is gas reserves that could be exploited in Saldanha and the West Coast. The Green Connection takes the government to court, which is something that is not surprising because their funders are very clear as to, we are going to fund organizations that are going to help us achieve this objective of theirs, which is to restrict any form of gas and oil exploration. Now, gas exploration in our country was going to be something that creates jobs, alleviate the energy issues. But because of the unregulated NGO sector, you find that we as a country, we are not really protective of our sovereignty, our policy formulation processes, and there's not even transparency, because in our view, if you're an NGO, just like political parties, a political party is legally obligated to report donations, declared donations, but NGOs don't do so.
Sure.
But you find that, again, as a political party, if you receive funds outside of the country, you can only use those funds for training and leadership development. You can't use it for anything else. But for NGOs, they can use it for whatever, including taking the government to court.
Sure.
So it's one of those things that we felt as a party. Let us introduce a bill that will make sure that when it comes to our policy formulation processes, it is the voices of the poor that will be heard instead of the voices of wealthy NGOs who are able to have access to ministers or departments or parliaments to the detriment of our South African citizens. Because an NGO that is foreign funded, its mission is to align the policies in South Africa to be aligned to whatever standards of their funder.
Sure.
It will never be having a policy that is aligned to the interests of the people. So that is where we are saying that it is a huge gap that needs to be addressed by regulating the NGO society. And we are not fighting against NGOs.
Sure.
We just want a case whereby even the NGO players are having confidence that if you're talking about a particular NGO operating in our country, you don't have to doubt whether whose interests are they are serving. But currently now there's a lot of distrust in the sector because you don't know whose interests are these NGOs serving.
Yeah.
So that is what we are correcting.
Okay, excellent. No, we'll definitely delve into that in more detail next time. When do you expect that bill to be pushed through the system?
I think it's going to be between June and July because currently now we sent it to the legal division to make sure that it meets the standards as required by Parliament. And there's been a lot of back and forth between us and them where they ask questions, we explain our rationale. So once that process is done, it's going to be given to a particular committee because in fact, all bills, they are not processed by the House. They are allocated to a committee. So once that process is done, then it's only then that we are going to request to come and speak at length about the bill. Why is it important? Especially now in the case of this dynamics between USA and South Africa. You don't want a case whereby NGOs who are funded by America are used in a manner that is undermining our interests or to advance America's interests, you know. So that is the risk because, and again, it's something that we were asking ourselves, how come did the ANC government not think of this? Because most countries, whether it's China, it's Russia, it's America, it's India, they have legislation that regulates NGOs. In our country now, like Afriforum, what they've been doing, no one knows if maybe Afriforum is actually given money by Americans to spread their propaganda. There's no one who can confidently say Solidarity, Afriforum, and all of these NGOs are doing it in the best interest of the people. Because of that particular loophole, we want to address it.
That's so true because you can also have NGOs masquerading as if they are South African, but in actual fact, they're pursuing a foreign agenda.
Definitely. And that's why when we did like a search, other countries have such legislation because protecting our sovereignty, that's why even in political parties, as a political party, you are restricted. You can't we can't use money from foreign sources other than leadership and training development. But when it comes to NGOs, there's no limitation. It's a free for all, you know. And again, one would think that when that is done for political parties, it is to ensure that the political parties that are functional, contesting elections in South Africa, they are doing it for the best interests of the people and there is no undue foreign influence. But foreign funded NGOs, there's no, the level of scrutiny is not there, you know, and we've seen how NGOs like the Green Connection, other one is the CTFK, whereby in the tobacco space, they want our laws to mirror the international standard of their own funder as to how tobacco needs to be dealt with. So they do not take into account the realities of the people, the South African environment when it comes to illicit tobacco sales, poverty and unemployment levels, and the, the plans of the government when it comes to trying to move people away from tobacco to less harmful products. They're not concerned about that. Their only concern is that they want to drive that our tobacco policies mirror what their international funders views. And it's something that happens a lot in the NGO sector, whereby you've got these wealthy philanthropists or NGOs who are going to say, on the question of, for example, oil and gas, this must be the standard. So NGOs will be funded to operate in different countries, to influence government, to influence parliaments, that they must adopt policies that are aligned to those standards. So the question is from our side, what about the right of South Africans to determine the type of policies they want to advance? So it's a big, big problem.
Absolutely. Well, we look forward to following up. We'll keep an eye on that legislative process. And we thank you so much for your time. I know you have to get to Parliament soon.
Yeah.
We need you to vote in that budget,
Yeah.
that budget vote.
I'm going to go to vote to reject that budget. Yeah.
Let me not be responsible for one vote not being cast.
Yeah.
Make sure you like, share, subscribe, show some love to Vuyo Zungula, leader of the ATM, member of Parliament, who's been doing such great work around a number of issues. Don't forget that SMWX has its first live event coming up on the 25th of April. If you're keen to get tickets, check the link in the description down below. It would be great to see you at that live event. And make sure you like, share, subscribe. Ateti Lamachan today. So show some love in the comments. Aye.
Thank you.
Fam, just want to give a shout out to two incredible partners who have helped make this podcast possible. First up, a massive thank you to Curiosity Cape Town for providing us with top-tier accommodation while we were in the city. They also gave us the stylish studio from which to shoot. Also, a massive thank you to Pace Car Rental for supporting us with transport during our time on the road, getting us to the key interviews and covering all the important events. So, if you're ever in Cape Town next time, check out Curiosity for your accommodation. And if you ever need a car rental company, you know, as an SMWX subscriber, you need to show love to Pace Car Rental. Aye.